What is the name
Of the country?
of the where
Switzerland?
Dracula?
Oh, Transylvania.
Transylvania. Now that was Transylvania. Was also a Hungarian Empire. Now those, and down south there were two counties what have wheat and very famous that went to, they gave it to Sarajevo gave it to the Serbs,
Yeah.
you know, Yugoslavia. So that became Yugoslavia. Also, the Croatia was Hungarian that round. We have been very friendly with together, and they became part of Yugoslavia. The country became tiny.
And your brothers didn't.
And they didn't have jobs. They
Your
were all
mother's
living
brothers.
somewhere out
Yeah.
there, you know.
And they
My
could-
mother's sister lived in northeastern Hungary. They had a huge apple orchards in there. You know, Jonathan apples. Oh, that was so nice. And they had, you know, hundreds of apples they were fixing, and they were growing and packaging to send it overseas even, and for import export. They have a big farm in there. My aunt Putinini is my mother's sister, younger sister's husband and family. All at once the husband had no jobs, nothing. So they all came out. My father's brothers, they all came out, except two left in there. The others, well, the others were, you know, doctor, lawyer. They didn't need help. They could get.
So they would come and stay with y'all
for a while we were helping them stay with us. Then when they were established, Putinini was raising me for more than a year when my mother was sick or something. Telephone.
Next thing again.
You know, so it was like, and then the summertime, then we would go for a week or so visiting everybody else, whoever. But they were children who had my mother's brothers, 2, 3 children. They were together, we were together all the time. That was Lolo and his family. Now, we were very close. He just packed up the kids and sent in. We had a good time in there. And my father, never forget, we had that right horse, and that horse had a little horse, had a baby. I know Lolo was my cousin. There was about at least 1 or 2 cousins in there visiting. So we woke each other up at night. We were not supposed to go there naturally. The whole house was upset. The whole house was in the stables waiting for Pilla to have that beautiful little thing. And we were hiding behind the stacks of hay and all kinds of things. And the horse came, and my father didn't touch that, but we had a veterinarian from another city or other village, and everybody was helping the horse come. The horse came, and finally it got, and everybody was washing the baby, and it's going to be beautiful. It's black. And the mother was Snow White. Beautiful. It's beautiful. But a few days later, it had long hair, what was strange. So my father christened that thing, looks like Jesus' donkey, you know. So it was christened the Jesus donkey is Jesus Samara. So that Jesus donkey, it looked like Jesus donkey, was a wild little horse, was terrible. It looked terrible. It was some kind of I don't know, really was not a horse somehow. And it was a very big disappointment for the whole family. And once we were up, the summer yard for the horse was at the very end of the vegetable garden. And we went out to play around there, and someone let the horse out. And that donkey came down. Came down the road. We were running, the donkey after. We thought it's going to trash us. It was a lots of fun. Lots of fun. There was always a lots of
kids to play with.
Kids
all
to
your
play with,
cousins
their
and
cousins. They were,
visiting.
I don't have, one other Fulop girl was Mansika, is my father's youngest brother, had a daughter.
And you don't know what happened to all these people. You don't really keep in touch with them.
Well,
Sure
when I went back to Hungary now I went to see my father's brothers, they are all dead. Now, 2 of them were in Transylvania. They had 5 children and boys, and I would love to know them, but I couldn't find them. You go to Transylvania, you have to deal with the Romanians, and they are pigs. I mean,
Oh, so that's where they are.
that's right. That's where they are, somewhere. I don't have any address or anything to write to.
But so, what did your mother do? She didn't do too much.
She didn't
then?
do too much. Well, she played cards. She was sewing. She learned how to sew. She was always embroidering something, you know. And there was a lot to think over. She went to the kitchen, talked over what we are going to eat.
So she just managed that.
And you know, she liked to cook and bake with help. You know, and she had a lot of help, and she was in there, and there was always a lot of people in the house.
Well, how long did y'all stay in the country? I know, didn't
4
you come to
years.
the United States too?
4
to study?
years we stayed in there,
Mhm.
and then my father's back started to bother him from going on that buggy all the time, and he decided this is silly, and he wants to be a surgeon, what he originally wanted to be. And we arranged to go to Szeged, a university town. It's the biggest town after Budapest, and we moved to Szeged. And that was the first time I went to school, because in the village I didn't go to school. The teacher came to teach me. They didn't want me to get lies from the kids, but I always had it anyway, because we played together. So
We'll go ahead and take a break.
to the first school, it was a private school where there were 4 grades, you know, 1st to 4th grade taught in one room.
Yeah.
And it was on a hill. And I remember we went to school 8 o'clock, 8 to 1, I think. And then we were given always a 10 o'clock lunch, you know, 10 o'clock food break.
Yeah.
What happened is, I got a big piece of bread with bacon grease on it, salt and pepper and paprika, folded in, put it in a piece of paper. We didn't know big city things, sandwiches. And when I took it out, the kids started to laugh. I went together with one of the richest guy in Hungary, was the pig salami factory's son. He was fat. And he was looking at me, what is this? I said, that's bread and bacon. Who is that? Ew, where did you come from? So I told him. We came from Saget, and before that. No, that was in Saget. Wow. Out from nowhere, you know. And they were teasing me. And the first time I didn't really feel that they were teasing, but they were kind of sarcastic and stuff. And when we went home, this guy came and he kind of pushed me and he said, farmer girl, what do you eat tomorrow? I was rough, though, you know, brought up with cousins and out in the country running. So I put my foot between his, he fell down as he walked, very nicely. And he says, what did you do? I didn't do anything. I didn't even touch you. And it started a 2 years fight.
Between him?
Between me and 4 grades. They were teasing me so badly. Didn't bother me. It bothered me, of course. I didn't dare to tell my mother. You know. So I didn't dare to tell my father, of course. So the teacher told me to tell my mother to come in. I told the teacher all kind of lies, that she's sick, that she's and finally the teacher, one day, we had a little apartment, she came to the door. She said, I want to talk to you. It's come to the point that this child is really alone against 20 other kids. So my mother says, I know, she's used to play with 20 other kids, you know. Yes, but it turned out to be that I am too rough, you know.
Well, how old were you about then?
2nd grade, 3rd grade.
Still young.
You know,
Yeah.
Dane's age.
Yeah, 10, something like that.
About some, you know. What's the matter with people? So then, really truly, they told my mother she's better off, I will be better off in a public school.
This was a private school. That was the Catholic
That
school.
was, no, not a Catholic school.
No, just
it was a very rich private school.
Yeah. So then they sent you to public school after that?
So my mother took me to public school, and that's where they told her to go home and tell your mother to come with the child. So mother says, I am the mother.
Because your mother looked so young.
She looked so young. She was very beautiful.
She was pretty.
And she knew it.
And she knew it, huh?
So then I didn't have any problem. I don't remember back. And then I went to public school. Had no problem. I know that I didn't know as much as some of the kids, and with mathematics I was supposed to timetable to the times until 100 or 200, and I didn't know just half of it. So I remember that we had a big dining room, and we sat down at the table, my father and my mother and I, and they were asking me, how much is 8 and 8? Ta, 4 times 4. Whole evening. In the morning when he got up, that's the first, how much is 2 times 4?
So was he going to the university at this time? He was in school
went to
himself,
the- he went to-
studying.
learning. He was a learning to be a surgeon in the hospital.
Oh, okay.
You know, he was one of the interns,
Mm-hmm.
surgery intern, or something like that. I don't know how. Now he was already a doctor. He knew more than any of those guys, you know, about diseases,
Right.
but he didn't know anything about surgery. So he learned that for 2 years. And I remember one thing, we went up to the Carpathian Mountains to see my aunt's husband, who has that, he had these Jonathan apple orchards. And the coachman had a pimple, a big pimple in here. And my father never went for vacation or so, and he was nervous because there was nothing to do in there. So he says, Ivan, I'm going to cut that out for you. And half of the town came in the kitchen, and the kitchen table, they had a white sheet in there, and he laid down in there, and then my father boiled all the knives, whatever in the kitchen he could use, and then he showed people how he cut it, and cut it this way, and he says, peel it off nice, it's nothing, here, peel it off, and I don't know who helped him.
But you were watching.
But we were all watching. And he took out that fat, whatever it was, I don't remember. Then he made another operation in there, appendicitis. Someone had up, and they couldn't take him into town. So he said, okay, with the county doctor together, I'm going to operate, you help me. So the county doctor says, I never even saw. He says, you had to. No, he didn't. He insists that he never even saw, but he is willing. If you tell me what to do, I do it. So the two of them operated this guy. I don't know, and he was okay, but I think, how I remember, he had to stay in bed for 2 weeks after the operation. And later on we heard that he's okay, but he had some little complications, probably because he stayed in bed that long, you know.
So this was while you were on vacations in the
That was
mountains?
while we were a week vacation. He couldn't stand up not to do things like that. It was good. Then we went home, and doctors didn't make too much money. The country was very poor, very little, and he had we have like social medicine now. Now social medicine means that the big factories and the big industry had their own doctors, and if you worked for that industry, you took care of those people wherever they are. So they had little clinics. So he was working for the railroad, and the railroad workers came, and then working for the national, whoever, what was, about 3-4 those different social, or what they call the medicine things he was working for. Whether it was surgery or not surgery, in one place he was the head doctor of the surgery, but all it was. But he was. Then the Second World War and he was he was overworked. I mean, they took all the Jewish doctors, and it turned out to be the 75% of the medical profession was taken by Jews. You know.
So by the Germans. The Jewish.
When the Germans came in, that was around, the starting of Second World War.
So they were doctors.
And they were doctors. Lots of Jews were doctors who we didn't even know. There is a very good friend of my father's. He didn't know that he was Jew. prove with papers 3 generations back that you don't have a Jewish blood. So there were, my friend, my father's friend committed suicide because he didn't know he was a Jew, and he was half Jewish or whatever. A grandmother was Jewish.
And they were
all afraid because people were intermarried, how the hell who do you have for a grandfather? So this was very tragic, and they lost their jobs. So where my father was a doctor, there were 5 different doctors, internal medicine and surgery and this and that. And all at once there left 1. So I mean, he was working 24 hours a day. He was down. Everybody says that Philip is going to die on the table.
Well, where did they just fire these guys, or they went to concentration camps?
They took them out and they disappeared. Most of them at the beginning came to the United States, if they could. If they were rich enough, they came to the States, and or they went to Africa or somewhere else. If they couldn't, the poorer ones, they just took them. The Germans were in town, 1943. The Germans came into Hungary, nice and quiet, and they just took people. We didn't know the big part of people had no idea where do they take the Jews. We were told that they are taking them out to work, and they have work because the Americans are bombing and everything, and they have to work cleaning up, and that's what they do.
So your daddy was still alive there at that time? Somehow I thought he had
By
died.
that time he died.
Okay.
He died in 1943. He just went out,
He just went out. Okay.
Early off.
During the 30s.
Him and my mom,
Yeah.
it's just didn't
They
make
didn't
up.
get along.
They didn't get along. They didn't get.
Well-
My mother was nowhere around.
At that time.
Oh, she wanted to have always money, go to the theater, have a good time. My father had no
While
time.
she was in the city. Were y'all in Budapest at that time?
And well, we were
Y'all
in
were in
Budapest.
Budapest.
Then I was 15 when he left my father.
She left.
So
it.
she
Yeah.
left my father, and we went to live in Budapest.
Uh-huh.
And we lived together with my grandmother, my mother, who liked my father very much, and she didn't like this sporting business. But Mom talked her into it, and she was sorry all her life she thought that. And we lived in Budapest, and I went to the academy, and she wanted all those weird things. Then I was learning ballet for years, 10 years, and I was going out with all the theater bunch and opera bunch, and always people, newspaper,
This was when you were in college.
so-called, from high school on,
Really?
bad element was newspapers. I
The
know,
liberal people. Liberal.
liberal,
Yeah.
always, and nobody cared,
Uh-huh.
really. Nobody
So
cared.
your
Then
daddy
I
died
was, I
after
lived
y'all-
with my mom.
Yeah, he died while they were separated. After
Yeah,
they were
he
separated.
died.
What
Then
did
he
have?
came to visit us every time. Then
He
my
did.
mother didn't want to go back to Rakoszenihely, that was that little town next to Budapest. That's where we lived. Didn't want to go back, and I was engaged to Ishti. I met Ishti when I was 14. He was a young doctor from Vienna, and they were also immigrants from the northern part of Hungary. His father was very, very rich, and he went to Monte Carlo to play and came home. He played everything they had. Bought a couple of jewels to his wife, gave it to her, and shot himself. You know, that was very sad. It was very often happened that those people who were so rich and gambled away their things, they had no outlet, no nothing else, they just shot themselves and left their family without anything. So there was 4 children in there. So Ishti was going to the university in Vienna and came to Rakustani High. That's where his mother and sister was married, and then Bobby, she is the one who was with Putin for such a long time now, watching her and went to visit her. And I met Ishti. Now, he was almost all this through my Hungarian life. As long as we were in Budapest, he was around. And we were, at one time, we were engaged to be married. Then he went to Vienna. Then he came back. For some, I was looking, when I went back now, well, he died.
Yeah, later.
72, later. Yeah. And when I went back, he still lived in that apartment what I rented for us. Everything was war.
So why didn't you get married to him?
War came too close. I don't know.
You don't remember?
Why? I was too busy, he was too busy. War was on and off. We met and then we didn't meet, and then I met other people. I had lots of beaux and people, you know, around me.
Y'all just grew apart.
So we just grew apart, and then my mother went to live with my uncle to the west of the country because she didn't want to stay at the Budapest was to be bombed. And I lived in our apartment in Budapest. One night it was bombing, and all the windows, I woke up, broke. So I didn't want to stay there anymore. So
Did
I
you know
went
Shawnee at that time?
I didn't know Shawnee at that time.
At that
Shawnee at
time.
that time was still in Transylvania. He went down to Transylvania to look. One part of Transylvania came back to Hungary when Hitler came the German army came to Hungary. Hitler gave us back one part of, he says that part should be Hungarian because there was more Hungarian than Romanian, so not the whole thing. And so that helped us to get jobs and stuff. So Shani was over there with 200 soldiers combing the neighborhood and the woods and everything for the Russians were dropping off those guerrilla soldiers behind the lines.
Yeah,
and that's what Shani was.
He was an officer.
He was an officer because he was already a lawyer and he had to go into the army. So he went to the gendarme. He could.
The gendarme.
He could choose because he had a doctorate, and then he went to the gendarme and he became a captain. He was a captain.
Well, finish with your father. He died. He died of what? What did he die of again?
Really,
Typhoid?
truly, I don't know. Pneumonia.
Pneumonia. He didn't. He had typhoid fever though, or something.
Well, he had typhoid fever when he was. No, Shani's father had typhoid.
Shani. Okay.
He died when he was 28. Died. My father was 53 or 55, I don't know. 53, I think.
And he died during the war.
During the war.
During the war.
So
and he was working as a surgeon and all that at that time.
He was surgeon. He had a surgery. I went once because I left everything. You know, I was thinking a lot of times that I was such a brat.
Yes,
Spoiled. A brat. I done what I wanted to. I really, I'm so sorry. I accuse my mother of a lot of things, you know, because I didn't have a mother, too, you know. And who the hell could tell me what's what? Nobody ever told me what's what. To begin with, I never listened.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even when they were around, did I listen? No. So this is dangerous for a girl, you know.